Ram 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 Ram. 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 सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। 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 We were seeing the 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The beauty of Bhagavad Gita is the way in which Bhagwan Krishna gives this teaching to Arjuna. Somebody who was so confused, unclear about what to do, just by giving the right guidance, Bhagwan Krishna removes all doubts in the mind of Arjuna. The beauty of this teaching you can feel more when you read the 18th chapter. Finally, after having taught entire Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan asks only one question: Arjuna, has your delusion gone? The root cause of sorrow was moha or delusion. delusion about who am I? Why am I faced with this world in the first place? What is this world? Is it only two of us fighting, confronting each other? Or is there somebody who is overseeing both me and the world? So delusion about Jiva, delusion about Jagat, delusion about Ishvara. Delusion means erroneous notions about myself, about this world, and about God. Until this delusion is there, sorrow is guaranteed. So the main purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to remove this delusion for us. So first chapter all the way until sixth chapter, Bhagwan covered different topics. The main idea there was, Arjuna, just look within. Whatever doesn't belong to you, let go of it. There is one verse in 5th chapter which is very beautiful. Bhagavan says, Shaknoti haiva yas sodum prak sharira vimokshanat. Before a person gives up this physical body, if he is able to let go of the storm of anger and desire, kama krododbhavam vegam sayuktaha sa sukhi naraha, that person is happy, that person is very well integrated. Meaning these don't belong to us in the first place. If you can let go of something, that is not who you are. The best example is glasses. Once it is there on my face, if I don't pay attention, it looks as though it is one with me. How do I tell that I am not the glass? Because I can happily take it out and keep. In the same way, whatever things might be bothering us, here he is giving only two examples, anger and desire. There is a way of staying away from these two, keeping these two things away. It is possible to keep these two away. The very fact we can keep it away shows that it is not our essential nature. Then what is your essential nature? That Bhagavan taught in 6 chapters. What is the nature of pure consciousness and how that is our essential nature. He also gave advice on karma yoga. How do we work for greater good? How can we swallow our individual likes and dislikes, preferences, opinions, and work for greater good, such that prosperity comes to everybody? That was spoken about in Karma Yoga. Then 4th chapter he spoke about different types of yajnas. How do we do certain austerity in today's context? Not the fire ritual, but moderation in our interaction. That topic was also discussed. But remember, what is the main point Bhagavan Krishna wants to emphasize in chapter 1 through 6? Discover our essential nature. To discover that essential nature, all these things are helpful. Karma Yoga will help me to live my day-to-day life in a beautiful way. Yajnas will help me to sharpen my mind, discipline my mind. But that is not the end goal of, that is not the main point of Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Otherwise, he could have said, meditate upon pranayama, meditate upon breath only. 6th chapter, he says, meditate upon Brahman. So what is the nature of Brahman? Having attained which all our sorrows will end. Unconditioned bliss one can abide in. That is the central point of chapter 1 through 6. Now if student has done karma yoga, that student has done some austerity, he is living a life of moderation, he will be prompted to go to a teacher. Means his inquiry will not be a casual inquiry, it will be sincere quest. Sometimes people get this desire of studying music. It can be a casual thought. You heard some nice song or you saw a beautiful performance. This thought comes, maybe I should also learn music. But you meet that person after 2-3 years, he's still saying, I want to learn music. That is an indication that his quest was not wholehearted. If that desire was strong, right away he would go, find a teacher, start learning. And not learn randomly, learn systematically. That is what Bhagavan Krishna says in 4th chapter. If a student is ready and his mind has become pure, he will seek God wholeheartedly. Just like everything else needs guidance, simple yogasana if you want to do, so many doubts you get. Should my head be turned upside down? Or should it be flat? Matsyasana if you do, how much should you turn your head? You cannot read a book, nor can you read online and try to do it. You need somebody who can correct you at the right time. In the same way, for spiritual knowledge, he says, Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. He goes to a teacher with humility, with desire to learn, and conviction that I am going to put in my best. How does he show his commitment? He shows his commitment through seva. Seva is one great expression of gratitude. That is why that qualification is added. Pariprashnena sevaya. He is allowed to ask questions only after he does seva. Having done all of that, 6th chapter Bhagavan spoke about devotion, about meditation. How to keep mind in this truth, that was elaborated. Technique of meditation, preparations for meditation, lifestyle of a meditator, and obstacles that can come in meditation, all of that was elaborated. Until 6th chapter, people find I am connecting with Bhagavad Gita. Suddenly when 7th chapter starts, they start wondering what happened here. Until now, Bhagavan was telling us how to live your life, how to take care of this mind, how to act in the world outside. 7th chapter, suddenly he starts talking about creation. Unless we appreciate what 7th through 12th chapters are telling us and how it connects with our lives, we will always think 7th through 12th chapter is some technical elaboration. Have you ever seen Jnana Yajna on Vibhuti Yoga? Jnana Yajna on Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga? 10th and 11th chapter, it is not elaborated much. Mainly because it takes time to appreciate what is Bhagavan Krishna trying to tell. And there are longer chapters also. You cannot cover in 5 days. Please find a chair somewhere. Don't keep standing. There is one chair here in the front if you want to come. So one thing we have to appreciate, 7th through 12th chapter talks about God, Ishvara. Chapter 1 through 6 talk about Jiva. What is the transactional nature of Jiva and what is essential nature of Jiva? Transactional nature of Jiva is that person who is having this body, having this mind, and interacts in this world. What is the best way to interact with body and mind? Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is not for consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have body, doesn't have mind. It doesn't need Karma Yoga, doesn't need purification. It's already pure. But Jiva, transactional jiva is given instruction of karma yoga. In the same way, chapters 7 through 12 talk about nature of Ishvara. What is the transactional nature of Ishvara? How does Ishvara express as this creation? That is elaborated. And essential nature of Ishvara as pure consciousness, that is also elaborated. There is great benefit in studying about what should I do right now? What are the do's and don'ts of life? How can I manage my mind well? But whenever mind thinks about infinite, bigger things, it takes the form of that bigger thing. And with that taking the form itself, it experiences joy, experiences peace inside. That is one nature of this mind. Whatever object you give for it to think, it will take the form of that object. Think about it. If you are thinking about, let's say, car, your mind has taken form of that car. Tat akara vritti. If you are thinking about some person, mind has taken form of that person. You will not find your mind separate from that person. It has become that person. So bigger the object, greater is the expansion of the mind. So chapters 7 through 12 talk about Bhagwan as this creation. So when you think about creation, think about the things which are mentioned in these chapters. Mind naturally expands that this is who my Bhagwan is. Even when you go for a hike or you are in midst of nature, do you like to think about do's and don'ts? What should I do now after going back from the hike? You say, you are here, just enjoy. So I would encourage all of you, these chapters when we study, 7 through 12, don't look at it through the lens of something immediate, something small. You will miss the joy of this whole chapter. Bhagwan has already spoken about those perspectives. Third chapter is all about what should I do, what should I not do, how should I do, how should I not do. Seventh chapter, he says, it's an abstract painting. Just free your mind and flow with how Bhagwan is leading us. We had seen until verse number 7. So let me quickly recap those verses. Let us chant it together, 1 through 7. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya saktamanav partha yogam yunjan madashrayah asamshayam samagram mam yatha jnasyasi tachrunu jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshamya sheshatah yajñātvā neha bhūyonyate jñātavyamavashishyate manushyanam sahasreshu kaschidyatati siddhaye yatatāmapi siddhānam kaschinmām vetti tatvatah bhūmirāpo nalo vāyuh khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakrutirashtadha apareyamitastvanyam prakrutim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagate etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham krutsnasya jagatah prabhavav pralayasthatha mattah parataram nanyate Kinchidasti dhananjaya Mai sarvamidam protam Sutre manigana iva. Bhagavan says, Arjuna, I spoke about your true nature until 6th chapter. Now listen why I am continuing my discourse. Arjuna is getting a lot of praise from Bhagavan. The best praise a person can get, that Arjuna gets. He says people have asakti. Asakti means desire in several things of this world, but you are the one who has desire for me. Mai asakta manaha. Your mind is seeking me. If your mind seeks me, your well-being is my responsibility. So whatever you need, to provide you with that is my responsibility. So he says, until 6th chapter, what I told you is one part. But there is more that I want to tell you. Because you are wanting or seeking me, that is why I am continuing. Second qualification is madashraya. Whenever difficulties come, we take support of some support. Some object, some person. Arjuna is somebody who takes support only in God. His ashraya is Bhagavan. So he says that is the second reason why I am inspired to teach. Now he might have desire for God, he might seek support in God. But if he is not hardworking, Bhagavan says, I will not continue. But you are somebody who is yogam yunjan. Whatever I have taught until 6th chapter, you are striving hard to live your life according to it. Meaning he is striving hard to control his mind. He might be imperfect, but his effort is 100%. So if somebody seeks God, somebody seeks support in God, and they are doing their best, Bhagavan says, Asamshayam samagram mam yathajñasyasi tachrunu. Listen to how you will gain this knowledge with full clarity and along with the result of this knowledge. Asamshayam means no doubts will remain, and samagram means you will also see the result of this knowledge in your life. What is the result of spiritual knowledge? Not learning a lot of things. A result of spiritual knowledge is life should become sweet. Ishavasya Upanishad, that is given as Phalashruti. The one who sees that self in all beings, he doesn't get turned off by anybody. One who sees everything in that self alone is the truth. That person doesn't develop hatred towards anybody, nor does he have vijugupsa. Vijugupsa means getting turned off. Means his life becomes blissful. That result you will get. What was your qualification? He sought God, took support in Bhagavan, and constantly strived to improve himself. Then he says, Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshami asheshatah. I will tell you what is knowledge and what is wisdom. To know that there is some consciousness, something which is eternal, that is jnanam. But to understand that consciousness alone is appearing as his creation, that alone is my essential nature. And to live life in that way, that is called as vijnanam. Vijnanam means applied philosophy. Jnanam is informational philosophy. You can very well tell what is nature of Jiva, consciousness. What is nature of Ishvara, consciousness. What is Jagat, consciousness. But the moment he is interacting in the world, he falls back to his previous ideas. He says, I am this person, interacting with this world, fighting this world all the time, and I don't know where God is. So Vijnanam is that information has transformed him, become transformation. He is not only hearing it, not only heard it, but he says, this is my understanding. So that is Jnanam and Vijnanam. And having known which, nothing else remains to be known. Yajñātva neha bhūyonyat jñātavyam avashishyate. Now this phrase also, it takes some time to appreciate. How come that truth is something, having known which, nothing else remains to be known? Means if I study Upanishads, understand nature of Brahman, will I get knowledge of law, medicine, engineering? That is what the literal meaning of this is. Having known that, everything becomes known. But how did we understand this? There are several effects in this world, but cause is only one. Immediate cause, you might find several other things. So if you look in this world, let's say there is a bird, there is a tree, there is a river. What is the cause of bird? Where did the bird come from? Not a trick question, simple question. Came from an egg. Where did the tree come from? Seed. Where did river come from? It is snow melted. Immediate cause are three different things. There is an egg, there is a seed, there is snow melting. But if you probe further, you will find there is one cause from which this whole universe has emerged. That egg, seed, snow, everything is 5 elements only. Space, air, fire, water, earth. Given different names and forms, one is called an egg, another is called seed, third is called snow. Where did those 5 elements come from? They came from that one consciousness. Once we know the nature of that consciousness, whatever effects emerge from it, all effects become known. So from consciousness, 5 elements, different names and forms, this whole universe. But this vichara is not easy, because our mind will get stuck with names and forms. If you love some sweet, gulab jamun, does this thought come, this is Pancha Mahabhuta? Wherever we have raga or dvesha, we cannot do tattva vichara. Wherever we have strong likes and dislikes, we cannot inquire into that substratum of that thing. We will remain only at nama rupa, name and form. But it's a great joy, if you discover that this whole plurality that we are seeing has one cause. What that cause must be? What must be the nature of that cause from which this whole multitude of creation has emerged? Those who are having an eye for cooking, if you have 5 different items, when they eat it, they will not stop there. What will they think? What is it made up of? And if somebody tells you it is one ingredient by which you have made all these 5 different items, this is such a great skill. If you had not told me, I would have not guessed it. That is a skill, right? One almond flour, you make so many types just from that one thing. In the same way, Bhagavan says this creation looks many, but it has one cause. So I will tell you this knowledge in such a way that you will be able to understand nature of that absolute cause. And also when you see this creation, you will be able to remember that absolute cause, because that alone is appearing as his creation. You will not find that absolute cause separately somewhere. Consciousness somewhere, creation somewhere, that will never be possible. Then Bhagavan goes on to say, although this knowledge is so pristine, not many people seek it. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Out of several people, few people strive. Kaschid yatati. Few people say, I have to know that truth from which this whole universe has emerged. Otherwise, most of the times you are happy with little bit names and forms. Part of this creation we interact with and we say, I am very happy with it. Who wants to know the absolute cause? But very few people whose minds are pure, they say, just these names and forms is a very superficial life that I am living. It has not given me contentment. I have to seek that absolute cause. That number is very few. They will start taking some concrete actions. They will wake up in the morning, start doing some sadhana, join a study group, do some shravanam also. But then what happens? Yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvatah. Right when they start, summer comes. Whole thing stops. They started, no doubt. But that journey doesn't remain consistent. That is the meaning of the second line. Yatatam api siddhanam. Bhagavan calls those people who are striving as siddhas. Means it's only matter of time they will become perfected. Yatatam api siddhanam kaschit. Very few people come to understand me in my true essence. Then fourth verse he pointed out, apara prakriti. He said, my lower prakriti is all the five elements. Tanmatras which are there. Then total ahankara, samashti ahankara. Before that comes mahat tattva, total mind. And before that is prakriti, unmanifest. So if you want to see the sequence, from unmanifest comes total mind. From total mind comes total ego. From total ego comes the five tanmatras. Space, air, fire, water, earth. From that, this whole universe is elaborated. The point here is, if we are able to see God in five elements, whatever you see which is made up of five elements, there we will see Bhagavan. This is Bhagavan Krishna's master stroke. He says, in the cause itself you see it as my vibhuti, Pancha Mahabhutas. You know, when they make modak for Ganesh Chaturthi, there are some traditions where they will purify the ingredients. Before they start doing it, the dough will be purified. I mean, they are worshipped, so that whatever comes as prasada is very sacred. If you purify the dough, no matter how many modaks you make out of it, everything is purified. You don't have to separately purify it. That dough is like Panchamahabhuta. All of you are familiar with Panchamahabhuta term, right? Five elements. Bhagavan says those five elements are my lower form. From those five elements, this whole creation has emerged. Names and forms have emerged. All of that is my lower prakriti. Bhagavan, if this is your lower Prakriti, what is your higher Prakriti? He says, my higher Prakriti is, in that conditioning, there is reflection of consciousness. That reflected consciousness, whom we call as Jiva, that is my higher Prakriti. Prakriti means nature. Apara means lower. Apara Prakriti, lower nature. English term for Apara Prakriti, you can call it as conditioning. And what is my higher nature? He says higher nature is consciousness reflected in that conditioning. In classical Vedanta, they give example of a bucket of water in which sunlight is reflected. So sun is pure consciousness. The reflection of the sun is his higher Prakriti, reflected sun. And the water and the bucket, that is his lower Prakriti, that is the conditioning. So in the same way, this whole creation, the conditioning part of it is lower Prakriti, reflected consciousness is higher Prakriti. Why is it lower and higher? If you pay attention to only matter, mind will get caught up in matter. This is a great point for sadhana. Whenever we interact with a person, you will find lower Prakriti and higher Prakriti there. Right? Because body is there, name and form is there. Which Prakriti is it? Apara Prakriti. Then what is Para Prakriti there? Reflected consciousness. That life in that person, that is touch of Bhagavan, reflection of Bhagavan. In ourselves also we will find mix of Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti. This body is Apara Prakriti and reflected consciousness, the one who is seeing this body, that is Para Prakriti. If you hold on to reflection of the sun, very quickly you can shift attention to the sun. If you miss that reflection and you are holding on to water, bucket, which bucket is it kept in, what kind of water is there, it is difficult to see the sun. That is another reason why Bhagavan says, pay attention to sentiency. Even though if it is reflected, you can easily make the switch to original. How much time does it take if you are seeing the reflection to shift attention to sun? Right then and there. But if I am not willing to lift my head, not willing to see the reflection, then forever that sun might be shining, still I will not pay attention. Like that he says, this pure consciousness is ever present. But unless we bring attention to reflected consciousness, it is very difficult to pay attention to pure consciousness. Then Bhagavan says, both these lower and higher Prakriti, they are my way of expressing as this creation. I run this creation through my Para and Apara Prakriti. So whatever you see in this world, you will find Apara Prakriti, you will find Para Prakriti. If you see Ganges flowing, that H2O, if you take it out from there, what is it called? Para or Apara Prakriti? Apara Prakriti. The water by itself is matter. So it is lower nature. Is there Para Prakriti in Ganges? What is it? The Devi whom we worship in that river. So Ganga Devi represents consciousness which is presiding over that matter. That is Para Prakriti. You go and trek the Himalayas. The mountain by itself is para or apara? Apara Prakriti. But Himavan, who is the presiding deity of that mountain, that is para Prakriti. See, it is easy to understand with human beings, right? Because we walk and we talk. It becomes challenging to understand with different elements of nature. See, everything is presided by consciousness. There is a deity who is presiding over it. When we did our 50th year in Sandeepany, Jagadishwara Mandir, there were priests who had come. They were doing several rituals. 3 days of rituals were there. And one of the days, they were doing this Bali Ahuti. You have to satisfy all deities who are there. There is one special deity for the lock of the home. Some name was there, Argala Devata or something. So that consciousness which is presiding over the lock has a special name. It's a deity. The purpose is, Bhagavan is saying, feel me in this creation. First feel me in the puja room, in one form. But in Bhagavad Gita, devotion is expressed as feel God in this universe. Then comes the most beautiful verse, Mattah parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Because somebody might raise the objection, Bhagwan, you are the sun, you are like the sun, and your reflection and the water, they are your para and apara prakriti. Is creation also like that? That you are somewhere and creation is somewhere else? He says, no. Mattah parataram nanyat. Other than me, there is nothing here. Example will always fall short. You should take the relevant part of the example. So when we give example of sun and reflection, we should not feel that consciousness is somewhere and it's getting reflected somewhere in my brain, somewhere in this creation. Not in that way. Then we should take example of the canvas and the painting. Canvas is the substratum, painting is the superimposed. So wherever you see the painting, whatever part of the painting you touch, you're actually touching the canvas. Like that, whichever part of Jagat we point out to, we are actually pointing out to consciousness. But Bhagavan Krishna gives a different metaphor. He says, Mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Just like you have a thread and you have beads on that thread. What is holding all those beads together is the thread. But the thread is unseen. If you see it, you will see only the threads. But really speaking, you will see only the beads. What is holding all the beads together, that is the thread. So in the place of bead, you can put Jagat, world. And in the place of thread, you put consciousness. They say a good garland is that where the thread is not seen. Like that, Bhagwan's creation is such where consciousness is not seen. But what is holding this together is that Chaitanya. This session I think I had recorded from Trinidad. I'm remembering the examples I'd given there. If you take bead and thread example, there is one shortcoming there. What is the shortcoming? Bead can exist separately from the thread. You can have thread somewhere, you can have bead somewhere else. And what was bead representing? Jagat. You can say loudly, that way I know we are connected. What is the bead representing? Jagat. What was thread representing? So if you take that example, what if somebody says, world is somewhere, like the bead, and consciousness is somewhere else. Means Jagat can exist independent of consciousness. So Jnaneshwar Maharaj, he says in Jnaneshwari, understand that this bead is like a knot in the Janevu. From that same thread you are making the bead. Not a separate thread. Then it becomes Advaita Vedanta. That bead made from the thread cannot exist independent of the thread. Like that Jagat, which is born out of consciousness, cannot exist independent of consciousness. Now somebody says, Bhagavan, this is very difficult for me to see this whole universe as consciousness. Can you give some simple practices? Day-to-day practice. Bhagavan says, yes. Do you feel thirsty? If you feel thirsty, when you drink water, you can meditate upon me. So he is going to point out different vibhutis in this creation. Vibhuti means glories, greatness. Now this is where we should not intellectualize. We should not say, why is he pointing out only this? Does Sharbat count? He says, don't think too much. The upasana is bhavana pradhana. Bhavana means your emotion. It needs faith and emotion. It will give the result what it has promised. So let us see the next verse, 8th verse. Raso hamapsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayoho pranavas sarva vedeshu shabdah khe paurusham nrushu raso hamapsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayoho pranavas sarva vedeshu shabdah khe paurusham nrushu. From 8th verse until 11th verse, Bhagavan is pointing out 13 different vibhutis. 13 ways in which you can meditate upon God. First vibhuti is water. And he is speaking something which is very familiar to us. If he had picked what is that vriksha? Kalpa vriksha in Swarga. He said, what will come to our mind? He picks water. He says, when you see water, the sapidity in the water, that which quenches our thirst, that is me. And sometimes when you are very thirsty, you don't want anything else. Just give simple water, that is good enough. He says, when you drink that water, what is quenching your thirst? That is Bhagavan. Apsu aham rasaha. In water, I am the sapidity. In sun and the moon, Shashi Surya Yoho. Shashi means moon, Surya means sun. What makes the sun sun? It is at the radiance of the sun, the effulgence of the sun. Can you think about dark sun? So, no, sun means brilliant. When you look at the sun, that effulgence is me. Then at night time, when you look at the moon, the radiance of that moon, that radiance is me. Remember the introduction of today's class. Whatever we think about, mind becomes like that. So this chapter, 7th chapter onwards, it is talking about something very vast. Mind thinks about it, it becomes vast. Second one was, in sun and the moon, he says, I am the effulgence, I am the radiance in that. Amongst all Vedas, I am Om. Pranavaha sarva Vedeshu. The essence of all Vedas is Om. That Om I am. In Kathopanishad, we had seen the greatness of Om. Yamacharya says, if somebody meditates upon Om, they will get whatever they are seeking. Just chant Om and think about that Om as Bhagavan. So amidst all Vedas, the essence of Vedas is Om. That Om is Bhagavan. When you hear the word Bhagavan, it doesn't make it very sweet. Put your Ishtadevata's name there. In the midst of all Vedas, Bhagavan Krishna is Om. In the midst of all Vedas, Bhagavan Shiva is Om. In the water, what is Bhagavan Krishna? Sapidity in the water who is quenching my thirst. And if you want to make it even sweeter, add my Bhagavan Krishna. Mamata is something which gives lot of sorrow. Mamata means attachment. If that same attachment comes to God, it frees us from all sorrow. So instead of just saying Bhagavan, you say Bhagavan Krishna. Instead of saying just Bhagavan Krishna, you say my Bhagavan Krishna. So where should I see God? He says in all these things. When you chant Om, that Om is my Bhagavan Krishna. Pranavaha sarva Vedeshu Shabdaha Khe. In space, I am the sound. So when we are talking, the sound that is emerging, that sound is God. Nada Brahma Upasana, they say. So you take an auspicious sound and invoke God in that sound. Sometimes people ask this question, I love singing. Classically, I'm learning to sing. How can I make that into worship? You read 7th chapter. Bhagavan says that sound which is emerging, that is my vibhuti. Shabdaha khe paurusham nrushu. In all human beings, the paurusham. Paurusham is a very subtle word to translate. Direct translation will be manliness. I came across a very nice explanation of this word in one commentary called Sadhak Sanjeevani. It is by Ram Sukdas Ji Maharaj. He says Paurusham means one who is striving for moksha purushartha. So Paurusham, he is not connecting with physical body. Out of the 4 goals that a person should be striving for, the one who is striving for liberation, enlightenment, that quest for enlightenment is me. Paurusham means that. Self-effort for enlightenment, spiritual progress. Wherever you see that, you say that is Bhagavan. How many vibhutis here? 5. First one is sapidity in water. Okay, between water and sapidity, who is Bhagavan here? Sapidity. Between sun and the moon and the effulgence, the brilliance, what is Bhagavan here? The effulgence. Between all the Vedas and Om, Who is Bhagwan? Om. Between space and sound, who is Bhagwan? Sound. Between all beings and Paurusham, striving for moksha, who is Bhagwan? Paurusham. Now, can I ask you a question? Is sapidity in water or is water in sapidity? Okay, take the next one. Sun and the moon and effulgence. Is effulgence in sun and moon? Or is sun and moon in effulgence? If you say effulgence in sun and moon, what was effulgence representing? Bhagavan. And sun and moon represents the world. Is world in Bhagavan or is Bhagavan in the world? Shankaracharya clarifies this. He says, the substratum should be God always. Although here it is said, I am the sapidity in water. But really speaking, substratum is sapidity. And that is pervading water. Substratum is effulgence. That is pervading sun and moon. So Bhagavan is a substratum. He is pervading creation. Om is a substratum. So Vedas are in Om. Sound is a substratum. Space is in sound. And the last one is Paurusham. That is a substratum. All beings are in this Paurusham. He says the seventh case which is used for water, that should actually be used for rasaha. Means in sapidity, water is appearing. Water is being superimposed. Small ideas, but they open up many things. Otherwise, we take it very easily. Sapidity in water, effulgence in sun. You say, don't make Bhagavan finite. He is not the supported, he is the support. Okay, next session onwards, last few minutes, maybe around 5 to 7 minutes, I will leave for interaction. So if you have any questions, have any thoughts, feel free to bring it up. That's a good time. That way I can also tune and calibrate in terms of how we are going, what I should focus on, where I should slow down. But I would encourage all of you, how many of you are new to this class? First time you are coming? Okay. I would encourage to take good notes. It helps for mananam, means reflection on those verses. And when we do this mananam, our question becomes very crystallized. If a question is crystallized, answer is a great joy. Okay, so we'll collectively reflect for the last part, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. But do come prepared for it. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Next session will be Viveka Chudamani. Please be